Welcome to Shah's IAS Institute. When you open a website aashah.com, an inquiry form comes up. So you can fill up this form. We are starting a new initiative presently. So in the course, you fill in your details and select course as UPSC Civil Services. And in this you select, so after selecting UPSC Civil Services, in this you select free MCQ tests online. So this is the course in which we are now restarting our MCQ test series. So this will be online free daily questions on current affairs. So after doing daily current affairs through the PDF and the video, you can attempt questions on that day's current affairs. So it may be uploaded that day or a day later. So ideally you can go for it a day later and you can attempt this test. So here after creating a login, you will get the ID and the password through the institute once they admit you. So there is no fee for this, nothing at all. Only thing is you can call the institute on this number too, the inquiry number, and get confirmation. So once you are enrolled into the course, you will get an ID and password. So then you can go for the online test here. You can put in your login, ID and password. And once you have put in your ID, password and login, you come to this panel. So this panel here in the exam section. So in exams online test, we have a list of tests online for which will be there. So a test which you can want to attempt, you can just take test, and once you take the test, this opens up and there are 10 questions as you see here. They are posted here. So this is 12th April current affairs test. So this you can attempt here. See. So these are the questions you can see. So this is on PCP NDT techniques, which was in news. Then next is on rubella, which was in news yesterday. Then on AIDS bill, search the provisions under it. Then next is on G7 grouping. So which are the countries in G7? Then another question is on the 5th schedule of the constitution. Then next is on Mission Indradhanush immunization scheme. So which diseases are covered under it or not covered under it. So be careful about that too. This is regarding BEL 2 program. Then another one is on AIDS, regarding AIDS, the myths which are there too. So you should know about the conditions in AIDS, how does it get transmitted. So this is there. Just be careful whether the question says, is it correct statement which you have to pick up or incorrect? Because many a times UPSC has such terminologies and people mark incorrect. So your answer goes wrong then. So be clear which of the following is incorrect is asked here. So please make sure that you mark the correct answer then as per the question. So you don't mark the other way around. Then this is regarding goods and services tax network. So whether it is a not-for-profit entity owned completely by the central government. So you should know about the details about this. And finally, this is regarding the inner line permit. So these are the 10 questions made. So every day on the current affairs, we are starting off this initiative. Hopefully, we'll be able to sustain it. So these 10 questions will be uploaded daily. So you can attempt the test ideally the next day. So today on 13th, you can attempt the 12th test. 13th test by today evening or tomorrow, for sure it would be online. So thank you. Now in this video, we'll go for our current affairs. Also, one more thing, you will be allowed to give the test only once. It will be 10 minutes duration, 10 questions. So please attempt the test in one go. If you are prepared for the question paper, only then attempt it. So first study for the day's current affairs and then go for the test. So once the time elapses, your paper would be automatically submitted. You will not be able to give the test again. So seriously, come and give the 10 minutes test. Next, we go for 13th April news. So the news items picked up from the Hindu newspaper here are these 13. We'll look at them in detail. The first one, petrol prices, diesel prices to be fixed daily. So both petrol and diesel prices now will change every day in sync with international rates. Earlier, what was taking place was the state fuel retailers which are there, they would revise the rates on 1st and 16th of every month, means every 15 days, a fortnight. So every fortnight these were changed. So then the international prices change actually daily. So when these prices were changed fortnight wise, then there would be various drastic variations also. So this would be politically difficult to bring forth. So that is why now government has decided that now prices would change every day in sync with the international norm as rates are changed internationally and what happens in advanced markets too. So this will start as a pilot scheme and then it would go on throughout the country. So this is there. Petrol prices have been deregulated. They are free from government control since June 2010 and even diesel has been deregulated in 2014. So this is there. So these are the details regarding that. Next is Somali forces free Indian ship crew from pirates. So this is regarding an Indian cargo ship which was freed by the Somali security forces. But what is important in this news is that the militant group which is involved in piracy here. So this is important, Al-Shabaab. So many times questions are asked in UPSC prelims about these terrorist groups, insurgent groups, and where do they come from. So Al-Shabaab is from Somalia, you should know that. So this is the map given to of Somalia. We have discussed this earlier to Somalia. You can see a country here, Gulf of Aden lies here. So this is the base of Al-Shabaab, the terrorist organization here. Then next is Lok Adalat settles over 6 lakh cases in one day. So this Lok Adalat, which functions under the NALSA, National Legal Services Authority, which is led by Supreme Court judge. So there is National Legal Services Authority, then at High Court level there is State Legal Services Authority, and the Lok Adalats are established. So the second National Lok Adalat was established for 2017, and in this there were nearly 6.6 lakh cases which were settled. So it was conducted throughout the country from taluka level courts to high courts. So this is the news regarding that. So this has happened means what does Lok Adalat do? Lok Adalat is looking into cases where the court, we are not headed by judicial officers. So these are adalats where cases are resolved, means disputes are resolved amongst the litigants. So appeals, revisions are not allowed here. Once Lok Adalat's decision is taken, it is final, it cannot be challenged. However, you can go and file a separate case again as such in the judiciary. So that is allowed. But on this case, on this judgment ruling, it's final, no appeal is allowed. And one more benefit is that the refund of court fee is also provided. So that is an added incentive because this is not the court. So this is regarding the Lok Adalat. So this is a judicial system, the Supreme Court, High Court, subordinate courts, and you have civil courts, criminal courts, both sides here. The special tribunals are also there, and the Lok Adalat's function. So these are also there on the civilian side actually. So you can see, so they settle disputes by compromise, amicably, both sides coming together, compromising, and the dispute is settled. So these Lok Adalats have been given statutory status also under Legal Services Authority Act of 1987. So this is given here. Then you can see members of the Lok Adalats, they have the role of statutory conciliators only and do not have a judicial role. So they only can persuade the parties, they cannot put rulings on them that you do this. So that is how it can function. And the news is that it has been successful, 6.6 lakh cases resolved. So the judicial backlog, which is their cases of backlogs, that can also be resolved if Lok Adalats become popular. So number of cases were resolved here, you can see. So they will of course be on the civil side cases. So matrimonial disputes, civil matters, check bounce cases, even motor accident claims, etc., revenue disputes pending in courts were settled during this Lok Adalat. The next is poll panel throws open challenge to hack EVMs. So EVM hacking is an issue which is doing the round. So this is just the news that Election Commission has said that it has challenged. That open challenge is thrown that if you are making such allegations, then prove them. Hack and show the EVMs. So this is the news. The next is global interest in PSLV source. So PSLV, Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle. So this, the latest what we studied about this was the liftoff of 104 satellites. So it launched 104 satellites, out of which 101 were foreign satellites. Only 3 were Indian. So Cartosat series satellite was the main payload, and 2 were also of universities, nano satellites of Indian universities, and remaining 101 were foreign satellites. And 104 satellites in one go, launched with precision, was a feat achieved by PSLV, ISRO's satellite launch vehicle, and this is a world record, which was earlier held by Russia. Now India holds it. So PSLV has been very successful. There have been 37 successes as such out of its 39 flights. So this is about this. So the news here is basically that the demand has increased now for PSLV. It has received more than double the volume of inquiries from prospective consumers after that successful flight, which was in Feb 2017 only. 104 satellites launched. So PSLV can lift small satellites to low Earth orbits, and the weight of the satellites is up to 500 kgs, and it can place it in orbits, polar orbits, 500 kilometers above the Earth. So this is regarding the PSLV. So this you can see, it can launch Indian remote sensing satellites into sun synchronous orbit. So what is sun synchronous orbit? We'll see. It can also launch small satellites into geostationary transfer orbit. So small satellites can be launched here also. So this is regarding that. Other important feats achieved by PSLV are Chandrayaan 1 was launched on it, Mangalyaan was launched on it, and even Astrosat was launched on it. So this three also we'll see. So here the sun synchronous orbit is detailed. So in the sun synchronous orbit, the angle between the sun-earth line and the plane of the satellite remains the same. So that is why it is called sun synchronous. So you can see it goes above the poles. So this is the sun synchronous orbit. So this is the angle of inclination, the axis. So the plane of the sun-earth line. So this you can see is the vertical plane, as you can imagine. So this plane as such, the satellite remains at the same angle. The satellite as such, which is orbiting. So our satellite orbiting plane is this. So these two planes remain at fixed angle. This angle is fixed. Wherever it may be, the angle remains the same. So Earth is rotating as well as revolving around the sun, and this orbit remains at the same angle. So that is why it is called sun synchronous orbit. So this is that. Then next is geostationary orbit. So geostationary orbit is fixed 35,000, approximately 35,000 kilometers, 36,000 kilometers above the Earth's surface. So it's along the equator. So this is the geostationary orbit as such. Geosynchronous orbit can be many. So this satellite is stationary at any point on the equator. So that is what it means. So at any point on the equator, the satellite would seem to be stationary. So it's moving at the same pace as the revolution of the satellite is same as the period of rotation of the Earth. So as Earth rotates, the satellite is revolving. So it's always seen on top. So that's why it's called geostationary, moving along with you. So you find it is always stationary. Then next is, this is the shown polar orbit. Low Earth orbit is very close to the Earth's surface here, you can see, and geostationary orbit. And the satellites which were launched, 104 satellites, you can see 3 were Indian, 88 from USA, and 13 from other countries listed here. You can see Israel, Netherlands, Switzerland, Kazakhstan, and also UAE. So it was launched on PSLV C-37 in Feb 2017. The largest payload actually was Cartosat 2, so 650 kg payload. So the huge payload is also launched by PSLV, but these low Earth orbits, these small payloads, it has got the expertise in this. So these nano satellites have been launched. So this is the feat achieved, that so many small satellites launched in one takeoff. So this is that. Then this is regarding Chandrayaan. So Chandrayaan was launched in 2008. The first mission to moons. We are preparing for Chandrayaan 2. We have been discussing this in news also. So its mission life was 2 years, but it did not complete that time frame. It ended. The mission ended. We lost contact with Chandrayaan, and the mission was called ended. Later, recently, we have also come across news that Chandrayaan 1 has been spotted as such too in space. So anyway, the mission was accomplished because it was able to find water on moon. The moon mineral mapper which was there on it, which is the NASA payload. So NASA payload was also carried by Chandrayaan 1. So this was able to detect water on the surface of the moon, to minerals as such. So it placed the Indian flag on the moon's surface, and this was the achievement as such. So you can see NASA's moon mapper, it mapped the lunar surface, water was discovered. So this was a major achievement. Also for Chandrayaan 1, the soft landing as such could not be done. So now in Chandrayaan 2, which is being planned, there will be an orbiter, a lander, and also a rover which will move on the surface of the moon. So that is being planned for Chandrayaan 2. So that is an advanced version now of Chandrayaan 1. Then this is regarding Mangalyaan, as it is called, Mars orbiter mission. So this was India's first attempt to reach Mars, and it succeeded. So it's the first country in the world to succeed in its first attempt to reach Mars. And it is overall the 4th nation to do so. That is, ISRO became the 4th space agency. The other 3 are NASA of USA, European Space Agency, and Russian Space Agency, USSR. So these have reached Mars. So this was regarding Mars orbiter mission. So this was also a success. You can see it was also launched on PSLV C-25 in 2030. So Chandrayaan 1 went on in 2008, this in 2030. So its purpose was to find out regarding the moon's surface. So what is the moon's atmosphere composed of, whether there is methane on the surface of the moon, and whether there is possibility of life on Mars. So this was the purpose. So It successfully completed its mission in 100 days in 2014. Also, one more important point is that it was the cheapest and lowest cost interplanetary mission ever to be undertaken in the world. So it is much, much cheaper than what NASA does. So that is why you should understand why NASA payloads were also there on Chandrayaan 1, when it can also send payloads to moon, because this is much, much cheaper. So India can do it much cheaper and give you the quality, the same services at a cheaper rate. Then this is regarding Astrosat. So Astrosat was also launched on PSLV. That's why we are discussing this. This is the first multi-wavelength space observatory of India, which was also launched. So this is Astrosat. So the way we have these observatories in space, like Hubble Space Telescope, it's an observatory. So India has also launched now. Even Hubble now, US is planning to have James Webb Space Observatory in 2018, which will be launched. So Astrosat has been launched. Astrosat has been launched by India in 2015. So it is India's space observatory now. Then next is India-UK relations. India-UK framework to guide technology transfer. So this is the Secretary of State for Defence of UK. He is on a visit to India. So he said that there are discussions going on technology transfer, how government to government framework can be established to facilitate transfer of advanced technologies. So he says that UK is keen on technology transfer, that British firms should establish themselves in India so that high-tech capabilities can be developed in India, and then together they can sell these to third countries. So that is the objective with which they are coming to UK, to India from UK. So this is being proposed. India and UK have this defense and international security partnership in place since 2015. So this will be taken forward now. Then next is US can play key role on Kashmir, Pakistan. So as we heard the news that US President Donald Trump has said that he is keen to play a proactive role in Kashmir issue. India has said that he can play a role as far as tackling terrorism in Pakistan and bringing it on board through peaceful negotiations. But Pakistan has favored it, and he is saying that America has a very critical role to resolve the Kashmir issue. So we don't want to internationalize Kashmir issue. India's standards, a bilateral dispute should be resolved bilaterally. So indirectly outside, America can put pressure on Pakistan and ask it to stop terrorism related activities and let's resolve the Kashmir issue peacefully. But intervention in this peaceful resolution is not entertained by India. India is against this. Next is Center files curative plea on AFSPA. So by now, I suppose you must be knowing a lot about AFSPA, Armed Forces Special Powers Act of 1958. This is in place in Manipur and northeastern states, Jammu and Kashmir for long. So here, the idea is that the armed forces have the right to shoot, even to the extent of killing a person on suspicion. So these are the powers given to the armed forces. Of course, if such great powers come, then misuse is also possible. So there are such cases of misuse which have been reported, and a Supreme Court has seen a petition filed by this group from Manipur. Hundreds of families in Manipur, they have filed a petition to the Supreme Court to probe this violation, means misuse of AFSPA. So the Supreme Court had given its ruling. It was in July 2016 that it gave its ruling, which said that AFSPA does not give absolute immunity to armed forces. Of course, they have that power, but then that power is there as such. But every death caused by the security forces in a disturbed area, even if the victim was a declared criminal or a militant or a terrorist or an insurgent, it should be thoroughly inquired into to address any allegation of use of excessive or retaliatory force. So this was the judgment of the Supreme Court. So now the government, central government, is asking the Supreme Court to reconsider this verdict because it says this is affecting the morale of the security forces. It needs these powers to tackle anti-militancy operations. But the Supreme Court during that time had also said that if the morale of the security forces is important, that the morale of the civilians living here under the fear and threat under which they live, that also cannot be neglected. So that also needs to be addressed. So this is the case. Now let's see what the Supreme Court does on this matter. The central government has asked for a review. Next, this is regarding AFSPA. You can see it's in force in Manipur since 1980. So Irom Sharmila, the Manipur case, this has been famous. She has been in hunger strike for 16 years. She gave up her fast. She fought the elections in Manipur, present legislative assembly elections. But she lost. She got only 90 votes. So that was the case. So this is there. So it's there in Jammu and Kashmir too, as such, since 1990 in these districts. It has been extended further to further districts also. So the controversial sections of ASPA here, they are there. Section 4 and 7, these give ASPA sweeping powers and legal safeguards. So section 4 says that security forces can search premises and make arrests without warrants also. They can use force. These are in courts, you can see, use force even to the extent of causing death. They can destroy arms dumps, hideouts, and stop, search and seize any vehicle. So these are the powers given to the army in these disturbed areas through AFSPA. Next is in Sri Lanka. This is regarding Colombo's seafront makes way for China-backed financial city. So this is the Colombo Port City project, which was inaugurated by China in September 2014. So this is the largest FDI investment in Sri Lanka. $1.4 billion have been invested here. There were protests against this. Environmental concerns were also raised. So the present Prime Minister, when he was contesting elections, his whole promise was that he would scrap this Chinese-funded Port City project. So Colombo Port City project, because he said it was the brainchild of the former president, Mahindra Rajapakse. But then this did not come through. He won the elections in 2015 and he renewed the project again. He did not scrap it. So this is now said to be important for the country. So it says the project is also important for China because Colombo is located at a strategic geographical location. So here it's in the Indian Ocean. The financial hub can be created in Colombo as such, because there are other financial hubs like Singapore. But then in this region, Dubai, Singapore are there. But in between Sri Lanka, in Colombo, this hub can be created. So the void can be filled here by this financial hub. So there will be separate courts, separate arbitration centers, separate rules which will be functioning in this city, Colombo Port City. So now it has been called International Financial City Project. So because it was a port city as such, there were concerns of environment, environmental hazards as such. So fisher folk and environmental groups are still protesting against this. So this is the project this is apart from Hambantota. Hambantota is another port on the east coast of Sri Lanka. This is Colombo Port City on the west coast. Next is industrial output shrinks in Feb. So this is again, as it comes every month, index of industrial production data has come. It has shrunk. That is not important for us, but what is important is what IIP comprises of and the static part. How much is the weightage? So manufacturing sector has the maximum weightage here, and that manufacturing sector has shrunk. That's why IIP has also shrunk. So it has more than 75% weightage in the index. So you can see IIP sector wise. So three major sectors are there. Manufacturing, because it is index of industrial production. So for industrial production, there is manufacturing, mining and electricity. Manufacturing has the maximum share, more than 75%. Then comes mining and electricity. Electricity is also one of the 8 core sectors. So even this is one way of classifying it. This is sector-wise classification of IIP. This is use-based classification of IIP, what kind of goods they are. So this again is another segregation, and of course the other one is 8 core industries segregation. So 8 core industries actually comprise 38% of the weight of items included in IIP. So again, electricity here has the maximum amongst the 8 core industries. The maximum weightage is for electricity. So same, electricity 10.32%. So this is here one of the core sectors. The remaining 7 are also listed here with their weightage in decreasing order. So steel comes next, then petroleum refinery products, crude oil, coal, cement, natural gas and fertilizers. You should also know which are these 8 core industries, what the weightage as such, which is the having maximum weightage, minimum weightage. Even if top 3 are asked for arranging, you should be able to arrange them. And overall weightage of 8 core industries in IIP is 38%. Manufacturing overall is 75%. Then next is hold fiscal deficit as 3% till financial year 2020, says NK Singh panel. So this is regarding the FRBM review committee, which is headed by Mr. NK Singh. So he is the former revenue secretary and is given his recommendations presently. So FRBM Act was in force since 2003, and it wanted to bring down fiscal deficit to 3% of GDP by 2008-9. But then this could not happen because of the global financial crisis. So the entire targets went haywire. What is fiscal deficit? We'll see that too. The recommendation here which has been put forth is that the center should bring fiscal deficit down to 3% and maintain so till 2019-20. Then it should be brought down further. The timeline is given. So 2020, 2.8%, then 2.6, then 2.5. So this is the suggestion. Also presently for 2017-18, it says the target should be 3.2%. Then maintain at 3%. So this is better than last year. So 2016-17 fiscal deficit was 3.5% of GDP. So this is there. Then another suggestion which is made is that an escape clause should be introduced. So there will be a new act which will be formulated, replacing the FRBM Act, because it has done its course now. So this new act will have an escape clause that will allow government to skip this target for a particular year in situations like in cases of national security concerns, national calamities, collapse of agriculture sector, or like the way we see global financial crisis, far-reaching structural reforms, unanticipated fiscal implications. So in such cases, escape clause can be put into effect. Also, another suggestion is buoyancy clause. So buoyancy clause means if the fiscal deficit, if the target real output growth as such is much faster than the average, 3% faster than the average, then fiscal deficit must fall further, at least by 0.5%. So here this escape clause is also up to 5.5% deviation is allowed. So actually RBI governor was also a member of this review committee, Mr. Urjit Patel. He was not in favor of such a huge variation of 0.5%. So they wanted around 0.3%. Even Chief Economic Advisor, Mr. Arvind Subramaniam, was a member in the review panel. So he was also inclined to permit only 0.3%. But the suggestion coming from the review committee is 0.5% deviation is allowed in the escape clause. And buoyancy clause means if it's doing well, then bring it down to more 0.5% than the target which is set. So that is there. And the new act proposed, it's calling this Debt and Fiscal Responsibility Act. So FRBM Act, the new act will be called this Debt and Fiscal Responsibility Act. This is just the recommendations. Once accepted, then government will bring in the bills and the acts will be formulated. And also it says that there should be a fiscal council which should be created, and government must consult this fiscal council before invoking escape clauses. Now coming to understand what is this fiscal deficit all about. So government budget, it will have revenue and expenses. So these will be capital receipts. So capital receipts will also be there, and current account receipts as such too. So these capital receipts as such which are there, there will be some debt receipts and some non-debt receipts. So the debt receipts which are there means you are taking debts, means huge amount of debt which is taken. Capital is in huge amount. This is annually which is done. Taxes, non-tax collection, revenues will come annually. But receipts as such, capital receipts are huge amount of money coming in. So they may come in from sale of say PSUs, disinvestment or some such things too. So those are also there. But debt receipts which are there, that is not debt. So if debt receipts are there, means that is government borrowing. So this total debt receipt is what is called government borrowing. This is called fiscal deficit. So actually revenues and expenses are balanced. So the balance is there. How the remainder which is required to balance these is through debt. So that shows fiscal deficit shows the government's borrowing requirement. So that's the idea of fiscal deficit. Borrowing requirement should not be very high. So it should be fixed. That's what it's talking of, 3% of GDP. So this is fiscal deficit and primary deficit, the difference. The difference is, you can see primary deficit is total revenue minus total expenditure, excluding only the interest payments on debts. So primary deficit is, total deficit would be total revenue, total expenditure. Primary deficit only excludes interest payments. And fiscal deficit will be primary deficit plus interest payments, because here everything is included. Debts are also included. So this you can see here. So this is the excess of total budget expenditure over total budget receipts excluding borrowings. So fiscal deficit basically shows the borrowing requirement of the government. And primary deficit is part of fiscal deficit only. So this is excluding only the interest payments. Fiscal deficit excluding interest payments is the primary deficit. So debts is there, but amongst the debt there is some which is the interest which has to be paid on the debt as such. So that interest payments is excluded, then it is called, that from fiscal deficit, then it is called primary deficit. Then next is panel to suggest norms for virtual currencies. So we have discussed quite often about virtual currencies, the Bitcoin, and RBI has also cautioned the users, holders, traders of these virtual currencies quite often. So now central government has decided that an interdisciplinary committee would be established which would recommend an action plan for dealing with such currencies within 3 months. So these are digital currencies, cryptocurrencies. So how the transactions take place here cannot be regulated. So that is why countries and regulators, the central banks, regulators, governments are averse to virtual currencies, because they can be used for money laundering and such purposes also. So it's a digital currency. So you can see. So it's different from digital transactions. Digital transactions, the base value is in terms of the money which you have. So even if you have money in your account, that is the digital transaction which you will use for. But digital currencies, virtual currencies which are there, these virtual currencies are not replicating your money which you have as such, but that is the money generated online. So bitcoins and many such virtual currencies are there. So these are cryptocurrencies, means there's a cryptograph. So you have to solve that and get a currency as such, or get that money, and that money which is generated in this way is then transacted. So wherever it is allowed, such transactions are allowed, it becomes a valid currency. You can use them. Where people would not accept them, then it is not acceptable. So the currency's value depends on its acceptability, and this is widely used. So that is in use. Then next is Finance Minister rejects Apple's tax demands. So this is the last news item. So this we have been discussing about Apple. It wants to establish its manufacturing unit in India, but it wants tax concessions. So earlier too we have seen Department of Electronics and IT. They said that Apple, it cannot be given tax concessions for everything, because for chargers as such and batteries, it was said that these tax concessions. So these are not critical technologies as such, high-end technology. Not critical, high-end technology. So they should be manufactured in the country. For that, concessions are not there. So Apple is very keen on having more exemptions given to it, tax exemptions. So the finance minister has now rejected the Apple's demand, iPhone makers' demand. It says that now, since GST will come into effect, all imports will be liable to integrated GST. And any exemption from central GST, state GST or integrated GST can be granted based on the recommendation of GST Council only. So this is the statement given now. So that is it. Thank you.